The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets overhead as Kevin's boots scraped against the scuffed linoleum floor of Terminal C at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat a thunderclap echoing the shouts of security agents barking orders. "Hands where we can sim. Step aside, sir." But the word "sir" twisted in his gut like a knife. Polite on paper, but laced with the kind of scrutiny that stripped you bare. In that split second, as rough hands patted him down and a wand beeped insistently over his binder, Kevin realized this wasn't just a random check. It was a reckoning, the kind that could unravel everything he'd built. He'd flown out of smaller airports before, those sleepy Midwestern strips where folks minded their own business. But O'Hare was a beast, a churning maw of hurried travelers and eagle-eyed TSA agents who saw threats in every shadow. Kevin, 28 and fresh off a red-eye from Seattle, clutched his worn leather backpack like a shield. Inside it, tucked against the lining, was the reason for this trip. A faded envelope sealed with wax, the kind of relic that belonged in a museum, not a security line. His fingers itched to protect it, but the agents were already unzipping pockets, their gloved hands invasive as they rifled through his jeans. "Ma'am, sir," the lead agent stammered. A burly guy named Ramirez with a mustache that screamed 80s cop show. His eyes flicked uncertainly between Kevin's ID, name changed just 6 months ago, and the slight curve beneath the loose flannel shirt that no amount of packing could fully erase. The line behind them ground to a halt, a sea of annoyed faces turning into a gallery of judgment. The businessman tapping his Rolex, the mom shielding her kid's eyes, the college kids whispering behind cupped hands. Kevin's throat tightened, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and recycled fear. One wrong move, one slip of the tongue, and this could end with cuffs, not just embarrassment. It started 3 weeks ago, back in the rain-slick streets of Capitol Hill, Seattle's queer heart where rainbow flags fluttered like defiant prayers. Kevin had been staring at his reflection in the fogged-up mirror of his tiny apartment bathroom, the razor hovering over the stubble that never quite filled in right. Transitioning wasn't linear. It was a goddamn zigzag of triumphs and landmines. That morning, the landmine was a voicemail from Patrick, his voice crackling like static on an old radio. "Kev, I can't do this anymore. There's too much, the questions, the looks. I love you, but I need space." Click. The words had landed like a sucker punch, leaving Kevin gasping on the cold tile floor, the envelope in question burning a hole in his nightstand drawer. Patrick. God, Patrick. They'd met 2 years back at a dive bar off Pike Street, the kind with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played Springsteen and Patsy Cline. Kevin had been nursing a cheap IPA, his binder hidden under an oversized hoodie, when Patrick slid onto the stool next to him. Tall, freckled, with green eyes that crinkled like he'd just heard the punchline to life's cruelest joke. "You look like you could use a partner in crime," Patrick had said, clinking his glass against Kevin's. And just like that, in the haze of neon and cigarette smoke, they'd clicked. Patrick, a graphic designer from Portland transplanted for a tech gig, didn't flinch at Kevin's stories of top surgery scars or hormone fog. He laughed at the bad days, held Kevin through the good ones, traced lazy circles on his back under the sheets with a tenderness that made Kevin believe in forever. But forever had a shelf life in America, where love was as commodified as the Starbucks lattes they shared on lazy Sundays. Patrick's family, old-school Irish Catholics from Boston, had started with the side eyes during their first visit, the aunties cooing over Patrick's little friend, while slipping Bible verses into napkins. Then came the whispers after Kevin's name change, the passive-aggressive emails about praying for clarity. Patrick promised it was fine, that he had Kevin's back, but cracks formed like frost on a windshield. Late nights arguing in their cramped kitchen. "It's not about you, Kev. It's them. They don't get it." And Kevin, voice breaking, "But do you? Or am I just your liberal badge to wear at brunch?" The envelope was Patrick's olive branch, or so the note inside claimed. Mailed express after that voicemail, it arrived like contraband. Handwritten pages spilling out regrets, memories, a plea for one last chance. "Meet me in Chicago," it ended. "The Palmer House, room 312. I can't lose you." Kevin had packed it that night, binder snug against his ribs, testosterone vial tucked in his toiletry bag like a talisman. Flying blind, no calls, no texts, just faith in the man who'd once mapped every constellation on Kevin's skin. Now, in the sterile glare of the secondary screening room, that faith felt foolish. Ramirez held up the envelope, turning it over like it might explode. "What's this?" "Classified docs." The other agents chuckled, but Kevin's blood ran cold. "It's personal," he managed, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The room was a concrete box, monitors flickering with feeds of oblivious passengers, the hum of the AC a mocking lullaby. A female agent, stern ponytail, name tag Lieutenant Hayes, snatched it, her nails clicking as she broke the seal. The first page fluttered out, Patrick's looping script bold against the cream paper. "To the man who taught me what courage looks like." Hayes's eyebrows shot up, her tough exterior cracking just a hair. She read silently, lips moving faintly, then passed it to Ramirez. The chuckles died. A hush fell, broken only by the distant roar of a jet taking off. Freedom, mocking them all. Kevin braced for the worst. Accusations of smuggling, questions about his body, the inevitable demand for a pat-down that would expose the vulnerabilities he'd fought to claim. But Hayes cleared her throat, eyes softening in a way that airports rarely allowed. "Mr. Riley," she said, using his chosen name without hesitation. This is something else." She handed the pages back, but not before the room had shifted. The businessman outside pressed his face to the glass, no longer impatient. The mom wiped a tear, her kid forgotten. Even Ramirez, mustache twitching, nodded like he'd seen a ghost and found it kindred. It was just the beginning. As the agents huddled, murmuring over the words that poured from Patrick's soul. Tales of stolen kisses in Golden Gate fog, quiet confessions under Seattle's perpetual drizzle. Kevin felt the walls closing in, not with threat, but with an unbearable tenderness. This letter wasn't contraband. It was a bridge, fragile and flickering, across the chasm Patrick's fear had carved. And in that moment, with every eye in the room locked on him, Kevin wondered if bridges could hold, or if they'd crumble under the weight of truths too heavy to carry alone. The screening dragged on, but the air had thickened with something electric, unspoken. Hayes finally zipped the backpack, her voice low. "You're good to go, sir, but take care of yourself out there." Kevin nodded, throat too tight for words, and stepped back into the terminal's flow. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, glances lingering not with pity, but with a quiet solidarity he'd never expected from strangers. His gate loomed ahead, flight to Chicago boarding in 20 minutes. Patrick waited, or so the letter promised. But as Kevin boarded, envelope clutched to his chest, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Real security check wasn't behind him. It was the one his heart was about to face. The cabin pressurized with a groan, the plane's engines a low rumble that vibrated through Kevin's bones as they climbed into the steel-gray Chicago sky. He sank into his window seat, the vinyl cool against his back, and pressed his forehead to the double-pane glass. Below, O'Hare sprawled like a concrete labyrinth, runways etched in white scars against the endless flatlands of Illinois. It was the kind of view that made a guy feel small, insignificant, perfect for the spiral of doubts clawing at his mind. Patrick's letter lay open on his lap, the pages crinkled from the agent's handling, ink smudged in places like tear stains. "I was wrong to run," it read in that familiar scrawl. "You are my North Star, Kev. Always have been." North Star. The words hit like a shot of whiskey, warm at first, then burning all the way down. They'd coined it during a camping trip up in the Cascades, 2 years into their thing, when Patrick had dragged Kevin out of the city for real air, and a tent that smelled like mildew and possibility. Stars blanketed the sky that night, sharper than any city light show, and Patrick had pointed out Orion's belt with a beer in hand. "See that? Unwavering. That's you. Guiding me through the bullshit." But stars fell, didn't they? Meteors streaking hot and gone. Patrick's family had accelerated the descent. The Christmas invite to Boston had seemed innocent at first. Eggnog, a tree strung with tinsel, the promise of folding Kevin into the fold. Instead, it was a gauntlet. Uncle Sean's booming, "So, you're the one keeping our boy from settling down proper?" And Aunt Maggie's sidelong glances at Kevin's flat chest, the subtle arch of her brow saying what her lips wouldn't. Patrick played buffer, cracking jokes over turkey and forcing smiles. But by New Year's, the strain showed in the hollows under his eyes. Back in Seattle, the fights escalated from whispers to shouts. "They're my blood, Kev. You think I can just cut 'em off?" And Kevin, raw from a recent hormone tweak that left him nauseous and irate. "Blood doesn't give you a free pass to erase me." The envelope chronicled it all, Patrick's penance in prose. Pages of apologies for the silences, the times he'd chosen peace over pride. "I froze when they cornered me after dinner. Asked if I was confused by you. I mumbled something about space, hung up the phone, and hated myself for it. But hating myself means I still love you enough to fight for this." Kevin traced the words with a fingertip, the plane banking left toward Lake Michigan's icy shimmer. Fight, that's what he'd always done. Against a body that betrayed him, a world that misgendered him at every turn, a love that flickered like a faulty bulb. Chicago touched down in a flurry of slush and jet fuel stench, the wind whipping off the lake like a slap from an old friend. Kevin hailed a cab outside baggage claim, the driver, a grizzled vet with a Cubs cap, eyeing the envelope as Kevin slid in. "Palmer House, please." Loop. The city unfolded in a blur of brutalist towers and holiday lights strung defiant against the December gloom. It was Patrick's favorite spot. He'd confessed once over deep dish pizza at Lou Malnati's. Built in 1871, survived the Great Fire. "If bricks can do it, so can we." Romantic sap, that was Patrick, quoting architecture like poetry, sketching Kevin's profile on napkins during brunch at Lou Pichette. The lobby hit Kevin like a time warp. Crystal chandeliers dripping light like honey, marble floors echoing his hesitant steps. He checked in under his own name, no hiding this time, heart jackhammering as the clerk handed over the keycard. Room 312 was up on the third floor, a corner suite with views of the Bean reflecting the skyline's jagged teeth. The door clicked open to silence, the bed made crisp, a single poinsettia on the nightstand like a bloodstain. "No, Patrick. Just a note on the pillow. Went for coffee. Back soon. P." Kevin collapsed onto the duvet, the room's opulence mocking his frayed nerves. He thought of the airport again, that surreal tableau of strangers softened by ink on paper. Hayes had confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "My brother's trans. Fought like hell for his name. It reminds me." Ramirez had clapped Kevin's shoulder. Awkward, but genuine. "Safe travels, brother." In a country where headlines screamed division, those moments felt like miracles, small fractures letting light in. The door rattled, and there he was, Patrick, steam rising from 2 paper cups, his hair tousled by the wind, freckles stark against flushed cheeks. "Kev," he breathed, cups forgotten on the dresser as he crossed the room in 3 strides. Arms enveloped Kevin, solid and familiar, smelling of hazelnut creamer and the wool of his peacoat. "You came. God, I didn't think. You left me a novel instead of a phone call." Kevin murmured into his shoulder, half accusation, half relief. They pulled back, eyes locking, green on brown, searching for the lies that weren't there. Patrick's laugh was watery, broken. "Yeah, well, words are my weapon. Figured if I couldn't say it right, I'd write it till it stuck." They sank onto the bed, knees touching, the letter a bridge between them. Patrick spilled it all. The family intervention 2 days after the voicemail, his mom's tears over losing her son to this lifestyle, his dad's stony silence. "I cracked, Kev. Told him to shove it. Said you were the best thing I'd ever claimed. But I needed to fix me first, not drag you through the mud." Kevin listened, the hurt ebbing like a tide, replaced by the ache of recognition. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the mortar holding them. As dusk painted the room in bruised purples, they talked till words ran dry. Plans for therapy, boundaries with family, a road trip down Route 66 come spring. Patrick's hand found Kevin's, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces slotting home. "Marry me?" Patrick whispered. Not a ring but the question hanging raw in the air. Kevin's breath hitched, the world narrowing to that touch. "Ask me again tomorrow," he said, smiling through the sting of unshed tears. "Make it official over sad waffles at Wildberry." Night fell heavy, the city humming beyond the curtains. They ordered room service. Burgers dripping grease, fries salty as regrets, and ate cross-legged on the floor, knees bumping, laughter bubbling up like champagne. For the first time in weeks, Kevin unbound his chest in Patrick's presence. Not as defiance but as trust. Scars bared, stories shared, they rebuilt brick by brick. But as sleep tugged at the edges, a shadow lingered. Patrick's phone buzzed once, screen lighting with a Boston area code. He silenced it, but Kevin saw the flinch. Bridges held, for now, but rivers ran deep and undercurrents had a way of pulling you under. Morning cracked open with the insistent blare of traffic on State Street, sunlight slicing through the Palmer House curtains like a promise half-kept. Kevin stirred first, Patrick's arm slung heavy across his waist, breath warm against his neck. For a heartbeat, it was perfect, the kind of domestic bliss peddled in those Hallmark movies Patrick secretly binge-watched. But reality intruded with the buzz of that silenced phone, now charging on the nightstand, its screen a blank accusation. Kevin slipped free, padding to the bathroom in boxers and a tee, splashing water on his face to wash away the doubt. The mirror reflected a man mid-journey, jaw squared by tea, eyes shadowed but clear. He'd come far from the kid in rural Ohio, binding rags under baggy sweats, stealing moments in the barn to practice a voice that didn't crack. Coming out had been a bonfire. Family scattered like ash, friends peeling away like wallpaper. Seattle had been salvation, a city of misfits where pride was more parade than protest. And Patrick? He'd been the spark that turned survival into something resembling joy. Down in the lobby, over those promised waffles drowned in berries and cream, Patrick dropped to one knee amid the brunch rush. "Kevin Riley," he said, voice steady as the waitstaff froze, forks hovering. No ring, just a paper napkin twisted into a band, inked with "Forever" in Sharpie. Laughter rippled from nearby tables, a tourist snapping pics with her phone. Kevin's cheeks burned, but he pulled Patrick up, kissing him fierce and unapologetic. "Yes, you idiot, but upgrade the bling." The day blurred into a whirlwind of Chicago staples. A loop on the L train rattling past murals of jazz legends, hot dogs at Portillo's slathered in neon relish, hands intertwined on a bench by the Art Institute's lions. Patrick sketched the skyline on a sketchpad, Kevin's profile sneaking into the margins. Strong lines, soft edges. "You're my muse," Patrick teased, but his eyes held a gravity, like he was memorizing every angle against loss. That evening, back in the suite, the undercurrent surfaced. Patrick's phone lit up again. 3 missed calls from Mom. He answered on the 4th, stepping onto the balcony where the wind howled off the lake. Kevin eavesdropped from the bed, words filtering through the glass. "Ma, I told you. We're done talking till you respect him." A pause, then Patrick's voice cracking. "He's not it. He's my fiancé. And if you can't handle that, stay out of our lives." The call ended with a slam, Patrick re-entering like a storm cloud, face ashen. "They cornered me last night," he confessed, sinking beside Kevin. Voicemails, texts, guilt trips about grandkids, the family name. Dad even floated disowning me. Kevin's stomach twisted, the familiar poison of conditional love. "And," he prompted, bracing. Patrick met his gaze, unflinching. "I told them to go to hell. For us." The words landed soft, a balm on old wounds. They made love then, not frantic, but slow, reverent. Hands mapping scars like sacred texts, whispers of vows in the dark. Afterward, tangled in sheets, Patrick traced Kevin's binder scars with a fingertip. "These are my favorite parts of you, proof of the battles you won. But betrayal brews in quiet corners." The next morning, as they packed for the flight home, Seattle calling with work deadlines and a sublet to reclaim, Kevin's phone pinged with an anonymous email. Subject: Truth about your boy. Attached: screenshots of texts from Patrick to his sister, dated a week post voicemail. Kev's great, but Ma's right, this trans stuff is heavy. Might need to bail before it's too late. Don't tell him. Kevin's vision tunneled, the room tilting. He confronted Patrick in the lobby, printouts trembling in his fist. This you? Plotting an exit strategy while I bleed for us. Patrick's face drained of color, denial dying on his lips. Kev, wait, that was before. I was scared, venting to Claire because she's neutral. I deleted it, swore her to secrecy. But Kevin was already backing away, the envelope, now a symbol of deceit, from his bag crumpling in his palm. Scared? That's your excuse? While I'm dodging airport wands and family inquisitions, travelers milled around them, oblivious to the implosion. Patrick reached out, desperate. I chose you, every time. But Kevin turned, hailing a cab to Midway alone, the door slamming like a guillotine. The flight back was purgatory. Turbulence mirroring the churn in his gut, the envelope shredded in his lap like confetti from a funeral. Landing in Seattle's drizzle, Kevin ghosted through Seattle-Tacoma customs, the irony bitter. Security had vetted his heart at O'Hare, but this wound was self-inflicted. His apartment loomed empty, Patrick's sketches taped crooked on the fridge mocking him. He crashed on the couch, phone dark, the city's hum a dirge outside the window. Days bled into a week. Takeout containers piling up, shift work at the coffee roastery blurring into numbness. Friends, Jada from the trans support group, Miguel the barista with tattoos like armor, rallied with takeout and tough love. Dump his ass, Jada urged over foe, her locks swinging like pendulums. America's full of green-eyed dreamers who don't flake. But Kevin couldn't shake the what-ifs. The man who'd held him through dysphoria nights, who'd inked "My Hero" on his forearm after top surgery. Then the knock. Patrick on the stoop, rain-soaked and hollow-eyed, a manila folder in hand. Hear me out, he pleaded, water dripping from his lashes. Inside, a notarized letter to his family, severing ties until acceptance. Therapy receipts for solo sessions on unpacking privilege. And at the bottom, a velvet box, simple gold band engraved North Star. I betrayed your trust before you even knew, Patrick said, voice raw. But I'm here to rebuild, brick by goddamn brick. If you'll let me. Kevin's resolve cracked, tears mingling with rain. It hurts, Pat. Like fire. Patrick nodded, pulling him close. Then let's burn it down together. Start over. They stood there, soaked and shaking, the city lights blurring into halos. Forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was a slow thaw. But in that embrace, Kevin glimpsed possibility. A love tempered, not broken. Yet shadows lingered. As they dried off inside, Patrick's phone buzzed once more. Claire this time, texting. Ma's planning an intervention. Heads up. The fight wasn't over. It was just entering its second act. Seattle's winter gripped the city like a vice, fog rolling off the sound to smother the hills in gray. Kevin and Patrick navigated the fragile truce with the caution of bomb techs. Daily check-ins over text, no big declarations, just the steady drip of effort. Patrick sublet his place, crashing on Kevin's couch with a sleeping bag and a playlist of 90s indie. Nirvana for the angst, Smashing Pumpkins for the rebuild. Mornings started with coffee black as their moods, evenings with walks along the waterfront, hands brushing but not quite holding. The intervention loomed like a storm front. Claire's warning texts escalated. They're booking flights. Dad's on a warpath. Patrick's family, ever the dramatists, framed it as concern. A family summit at a neutral site, some conference center in Portland. Come with me? Patrick begged one night over pad thai from the corner spot, chopsticks hovering midair. Show M you're not going anywhere. Kevin chewed thoughtfully, the spice burning his tongue. Or what? Parade my scars for their enlightenment? I've done enough performing. But love's a stubborn director, scripting scenes you swear you'd cut. They drove down I-5 in Patrick's battered Subaru, the evergreens blurring past like judgmental sentinels. Portland welcomed them with drizzle and hipster haunts. The hotel a sterile tower off Burnside. The summit was set for noon in a windowless boardroom. Folding tables, styrofoam cups. The air thick with Irish stew from a catered spread. Patrick's clan arrived en masse. Ma with her rosary beads clicking like castanets. Dad nursing a flask-warmed coffee. Aunts and uncles in cardigans stiff as their opinions. The opening salvos were predictable. Ma's teary, we just want what's best for our boy. Dad's gruff, this lifestyle. It's a phase, son. Come home. Find a nice girl. Patrick fired back. Voice steel. Kev's not a phase. He's my future. And if you can't see that, you're the ones missing out. Kevin sat silent at first, binder snug under his Henley. The room's scrutiny a familiar itch. Then Ma turned to him, eyes red-rimmed. You stole my son, turned him against us. The words ignited something primal. Kevin stood, chair scraping loud as thunder. Stole? Lady, I earned every inch of this life. The binders, the shots, the nights crying in bathrooms because mirrors lie. Patrick didn't choose me, he chose love. Real love. Not your fairy tale version with picket fences and prayers. The room froze, forks clattering. Uncle Sean muttered about disrespect, but Ma's face crumpled, a sob escaping. In the hush, Patrick squeezed Kevin's hand under the table. Anchor, not chain. Claire broke the stalemate, ever the mediator. This isn't about blame. It's about family, blood, or chosen. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to a video. Patrick's tearful FaceTime from Chicago, post-proposal, gushing about, the man who saved me from myself. Gasps rippled. Even Dad's mustache twitched with something like thaw. Ma reached across, tentative. Show me your heart, lad. Not the anger, the why. What followed was excavation. Kevin's Ohio roots, the farm boy binding dreams in hay bales. Patrick's Portland youth, sketching queer icons in secret notebooks. Laughter cracked through. Stories of botched tattoos and midnight diner runs. By dusk, the stew cold and uneaten, tentative bridges formed. Ma slipped Kevin a worn photo. Young Patrick in a dress, twirling for the camera. He always knew his own beat, she whispered. Dad clapped shoulders, gruff. Treat him right, or I'll fly back with the shovel. Driving north that night, stars punching through clouds, Patrick pulled over at a viewpoint overlooking the Columbia Gorge. You were magnificent, he said, kissing Kevin under the dash lights. My hero. They made out like teens, fogged windows shielding their world, hands roaming with the hunger of survivors. Back home, the apartment felt less like a battlefield, more like base camp. Spring teased with crocuses in the parks, but betrayal's echo lingered in subtler forms. At Patrick's job, a trendy agency in Belltown, whispers followed. Heard his fiancée's one of those. Colleagues with rainbow pins on laptops, but eyes that lingered too long on Kevin's chest during happy hours. One night, post-layoff party, a tipsy account exec cornered Patrick. Dude, you sure? I mean, trans guy's hot in theory, but marriage. Patrick decked him, one clean hook to the jaw, security hauling him out, HR emails flooding by dawn. The fallout was a pressure cooker. Patrick suspended, Kevin patching bruises with frozen peas. I couldn't let it slide. Patrick fumed, ice pack slipping. Kevin nodded, but inside, the old fear gnawed. Would this be the crack that widened? Therapy helped. Their counselor a no-nonsense dyke named Rosa who called bullshit on both sides. Love's not a shield, boys. It's a mirror. Reflects your messes back at you. Summer bloomed hot and hazy. Pride weekend a riot of color down Broadway. They marched hand in hand. Patrick's sign reading Ally in Progress. Kevin's trans and thriving. The crowd roared, confetti raining like blessings. That night, rooftop party at Jada's. Queer chosen family in full force. They danced till dawn. Patrick's head on Kevin's shoulder to Chapel Roan. The city sprawling electric below. But high tides recede. August brought a letter from Boston. Ma, post-heart scare, pleading a visit. For Patrick's sake. Show me I'm wrong. Kevin balked. I'm not your redemption arc. But Patrick's eyes, puppy-wide, one weekend, prove we're solid. Reluctance gnawing, Kevin agreed. The flight eased a knot in his stomach. Logan Airport spat them into Beantown's bustle, cabs honking like geese. The family home in Dorchester was a triple-decker row house, saints' statues glaring from the mantel. Ma greeted with hugs and soda bread, Dad with a nod and a beer. The visit unfolded in fits. Awkward dinners where politics skirted trans rights like landmines. Backyard barbecues with uncles grilling steaks and opinions. Ma cornered Kevin one afternoon in the kitchen, flour-dusted hands on his. I see it now, the light in his eyes, like when he was small, chasing fireflies. Thank you. Triumph soured on the last night. Dad pulled Patrick aside in the den, voices rising. You're throwing away legacy for this? Patrick stormed out, Kevin toe, tires screeching into the night. At the hotel, rage boiled over. Patrick smashing a lamp, Kevin yelling, see? Blood always wins. Punches traded. Not fists but words. You dragged me into this circus. I thought you were stronger. Dawn found them spent. Apologies whispered over room service eggs. We're fractured, Kevin said, packing. But not fatal. Patrick nodded, bandaged heart and eyes. The flight home was silent, hands linked across the armrest. Landing in Seattle, they vowed a break, no, a reset. Therapy doubles, family off limits, focus on us. Autumn leaves turned the parks to fire, mirroring the burn of healing. They hiked Discovery Park, salt air scouring wounds. Patrick sketches now joint ventures, portraits of us in pencil and promise. Holiday lights twinkled early, a wedding date penciled for June. But as snow dusted the sound, Claire's call shattered the idyll. Dad's sick, cancer. He wants to make amends, before it's too late. The choice loomed, a fork in the road, grace or grudge. Winter's grip tightened on Seattle, the Space Needle vanishing into low clouds as if ashamed of the season's chill. Kevin stared at his phone, Claire's message glowing like a flare. Stage 4. Months, maybe. He's asking for you both. Patrick's face, when he read it, folded like wet paper. Green eyes dull, jaw clenched against the sob. They sat on the kitchen floor, backs to cabinets stocked with half-empty pasta boxes, the fridge humming a dirge. He hates me, Patrick whispered. Us. Why now? Kevin pulled him close, Patrick's head heavy on his shoulder. Regret's a thief. Steals peace till you pay up. His own family ghost stirred. The Ohio farmhouse sold after his coming out. Mom's final letter a mix of scripture and sorrow. Forgiveness wasn't absolution. It was exhaling the poison. We go, Kevin decided. Not for him, for you. Closure's a gift. The red-eye to Boston was brutal. Cramped seats, stale pretzels, Patrick's knee bouncing like a jackhammer. They rented a Subaru, irony noted, and drove the familiar route to Dorchester, snow flurrying like confetti from a grim parade. The house sagged under fresh powder, Christmas lights unstrung and forlorn. Ma answered the door, apron dusted with cookie flour, her hug fierce and flowery. He's in the den, she said, voice threaded with hope. Weak, but waiting. Dad Eamon, reclined in a lazy boy, tubes snaking from arms to beeping machines, his once broad frame shrunken to bones. The mustache drooped, eyes sunken but sharp. Boys, he rasped, gesturing to mismatched chairs. No beer this time, just ginger ale fizzing faintly. The air smelled of Benghazi and regret. Patrick knelt first, hand on knee. Dad. Eamon's gaze flicked to Kevin, lingering on the flat chest, the steady jaw. You came. Words tumbled then, halting as a stalled engine. Eamon's youth in Ireland, immigrating with dreams bigger than his English. Raising Patrick in a world that prized sons over sensitivities. I was blind, he admitted, voice gravel. Saw threats where there was love. Thought I was protecting you, Pat, from whispers, judgments. But I built walls round my own heart. Tears tracked his cheeks, surprising them all. Kevin shifted, the room's weight pressing. It hurt, he said quietly. felt like erasure. Eamon nodded, wincing. And now, I'm erased by my own pride. He pulled a drawer, extracting a photo album yellowed with age. Patrick's childhood scribbles, Kevin's face pasted in beside them like an afterthought made canon. Ma showed me your letter, Pat. From Chicago. Words like that, they stick. Patrick's breath hitched, the airport miracle circling back. Ma entered with tea, settling in, the four of them a fragile tableau. Days blurred into a vigil. Hospital runs to Mass General, where chemo dripped like slow venom. Evenings of Ma's stew and Eamon's halting stories. War tales from Vietnam protests he'd dodged. Queer friends from his union days he'd buried deep. Kevin read to him from Patrick's sketches, turning art into absolution. One night, as snow blanketed the stoop, Eamon gripped Kevin's hand. Your family, lad. Blood don't make it, choices do. The words landed soft, a suture on old gashes. Patrick bloomed in the tending, cooking breakfasts with Ma, sparring gently with Dad over Red Sox reruns. But cracks spidered. Claire's resentment bubbling in sidelong glares, whispers of you're enabling his denial. One afternoon, post-treatment fog, Eamon cornered Patrick. Don't let me off easy, son. Promise you'll fight. For him, for you. Patrick vowed it, but doubt shadowed his eyes. Back in the hotel, he confessed to Kevin. What if I'm like him? Flinching at the hard parts. You're not, Kevin soothed, but the seed took root. Flights home were bittersweet. Eamon waving frail from the porch. Seattle greeted with cherry blossoms defiant against frost. But Patrick's sketches turned somber. Shadowed figures, fractured lines. Work reinstated him, but the agency buzzed with gossip. Heard the fiancé's family drama. Trans guys stirring the pot. A client pulled a gig, citing brand misalignment. Money tightened, tempers frayed. Spring uncoiled tentative. Wedding plans sketched on napkins. Small ceremony at Gasworks Park. Vows under rusting relics. Jada as best woman, Miguel officiating with flair. But May brought the call. Eamon hospitalized, pneumonia complicating the cancer. They flew east again, the pattern a weary rhythm. At the bedside, Ma slipped Kevin an envelope, Dad's will amended. To Kevin, my son in spirit, the house if you want it. Build memories there. Patrick's sob echoed down the hall. Eamon passed at dawn, monitors flatlining to birdsong outside. The funeral was a blur. Bagpipes wailing Amazing Grace. Eulogies mixing Irish toasts with teary amends. Ma clung to Kevin post-burial, rosary beads in his palm. He loved you in his way. Claire softened too, hugging tight. Sorry for the shit. You're good for him. Grief's a forge, hammering fragility to strength. Back in Seattle, they scattered Eamon's ashes off Alki Beach. Waves claiming the dust, gulls wheeling witness. Patrick proposed anew that night, ring glinting under moon. Marry me proper? No takebacks. Kevin laughed through tears. Deal. Summer swelled with prep. Invitations etched on recycled paper, tuxes tailored to scars. Pride again, this time with Ma visiting. Rainbow pins clashing with her cardigan. Cheering horse as they kissed on the float. But betrayal's ghost stirred in August. An ex-colleague emailed Patrick screenshots, leaked DMs from the agency, mocking the trans wedding sideshow. Fury reignited, Patrick raging. They'll pay. Kevin reined him. Don't sink to their level. Rise with me. The rehearsal dinner at a Fremont brewpub crackled with kin, Jada toasting, to loves that rewrite the rules. Ma raising a pint with slaint to new beginnings. Vows waited, but tension hummed. Patrick's phone, buried in his pocket, buzzed with a withheld number. He ignored it, but Kevin caught the flinch, the echo of old fears. Rehearsal over, they walked home under street lamps, hands linked. Ready? Patrick asked. Kevin squeezed. Born ready. But as they crested the hill, the city lights twinkling like distant stars. A car idled curbside, headlights cutting the dark. Claire stepped out, face ashen. It's Ma. Accident on the pike. Bad. The world tilted, Joy's precipice crumbling to abyss. The pike, Boston's elevated artery, a vein of steel and regret, claimed Ma in a pileup of twisted metal and screeching brakes. Claire's call shattered the night. Drunk driver. She didn't. ICU, but it's grim. Patrick drove them to the airport in a daze, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, Kevin navigating via phone as SeaTac lights receded. The red-eye was a vigil in miniature. Patrick staring vacant at the seatback screen, Kevin murmuring half-prayers cribbed from Ma's rosary. She was coming for the wedding, Patrick choked. Landed yesterday. Texted about the cake. Logan spat them into Dawn's pallor, cabs crawling through slush. Mass General's halls echoed with beeps and muffled cries. Claire pacing the waiting room like a caged wolf. Coma, she reported, hugging Patrick fierce. Doctors say, touch and go. Ma lay porcelain fragile in the bed, tubes a cruel lattice, the room scented with antiseptic and wilted lilies. Patrick collapsed beside her, holding the hand that had bandaged his knees, whispering Gaelic lullabies from childhood. Days dissolved into shifts. Patrick at bedside, Kevin fetching coffees and coordinating with ants flying in from Dublin. Ma flickered, eyes fluttering once, a squeeze of fingers, but the machines ruled, their rhythm a metronome to despair. Funerals layered like sediment. Eamon's fresh grave still raw. Now this. Kevin fielded calls from Seattle. Jada postponing the wedding. Take the time, loves. But time was the enemy, slipping like sand. One twilight, as monitors cast blue ghosts on the walls, Ma stirred. Eyes opened, hazy but hers. Pat, my boy. Voice a rasp, but the words flowed. Regrets for judgments, pride in his path, love for Kevin like a son. Tears baptized the sheets. Don't let loss harden you, she urged. Love soft. Forgive easy. Patrick nodded. Broken. We will, Ma. She slipped back to sleep, vital signs steadying. Doctors murmured miracle. But Kevin saw grace. Hard one, human. Recovery was a marathon. Rehab in Dorchester, Massachusetts bossing nurses with Irish bluster. They extended the stay, wedding on hold, turning vigil to mending. Claire thawed fully, sharing beers on the stoop. You two? You're the real deal. Dad saw it last. Aunts arrived with stew pots and stories, the house alive with chatter. Ghosts banished by garlic and gossip. June bloomed back east, Seattle's cherry trees a memory. They wed in the backyard under a tent strung with lights, Ma in the front row, Kane tapping time to a fiddler. 50 guests. Jada in sequins, Miguel booming vows. In sickness, health and family feuds. Queer kin from Capitol Hill mingling with Boston braids. Patrick, tux sharp, eyes shining. Kevin, you navigated my storms, charted my stars. I vow to be your steady north, through every squall. Kevin, voice thick. Pat, you saw me whole when I was fragments. I promise to hold your hand, even when it shakes. Rings exchanged, gold warmed by sun. Kiss sealed with cheers and confetti. Ma stood, hugging tight. My blessings, lads. You've mended more than hearts. The reception spilled into night. Toasts clinking, dances wild. Patrick twirling Kevin to Wonderwall. Ma swaying with Dad's old flask. Honeymoon deferred to Portland's coast. Cannon Beach, Haystack Rock sentinel to their sands. They walked tide pools, hands linked, waves erasing footprints. We almost lost this, Patrick said, skipping a stone. Kevin nodded. But we fought. That's the story. Love, they learned, wasn't absence of betrayal. Eamon's pride, Patrick's texts, the world's whispers, but presence in its wake. Fall returned them to Seattle, Ma stable in Boston, visits promised. Patrick's agency folded, but he launched freelance, designs for trans orgs, bold lines of visibility. Kevin advanced at the roastery, training baristas on pronouns with quiet fire. Their apartment bloomed. Shelves of mixed media art, a wall of photos, O'Hare envelope framed, a talisman. One December Eve, snow dusting the sound, they hosted family. Ma via Zoom, beaming from her armchair. Remember that airport fuss? Patrick teased, arm around Kevin. Ma chuckled. Changed more than hearts. Changed us. The screen flickered with her nod. The room warm with stew and stories. Years unfurled like chapters. Adoptions discussed over brunches. Patrick's exhibit at Sam drawing crowds. Kevin's TEDx talk on bridges over chasms going viral. Betrayals faded to footnotes. Conflicts to catalysts. In America's vast tapestry, flawed, frayed, they wove a thread unbreakable. And in quiet moments, envelope yellowing on the shelf, Kevin knew. What security found wasn't just words. It was proof that hearts, once cracked, could mend, stronger, shining, shared.